Well, I'm terribly sorry that I can't be there today for the afternoon class for Electronic Media 1. But, well, nowadays you're all probably pretty familiar with watching videos and remote presentations and all that. So I thought I'd do our presentation recorded so at least you can have the introduction to the class and get going with our coursework. So, first of all, let's take a look at the syllabus. You know, everything is in the syllabus, and that should have all the basic information about the schedule of the course, and then I'll take a look at Canvas. So, let's take a look at the syllabus so far, and this is posted on Canvas, and do note that this class, there are actually interior architecture students and architectural studies students. Probably most of the architectural studies students are in the morning class, but the syllabus is adapted for both of you. And basically, this course, the kind of official description here is that the course is intended to give students a set of strategies for incorporating technology and electronic workflow into their designs. And that is the focus of electronic media, is using all sorts of electronic tools and toys to get you the best kind of visualization and imagining of your designs. That's what we're here for, right? We are here to learn how to come up with good designs and then create them on the computer so that we can explore them and evaluate them. And then finally, we are going to produce construction drawings and management tools that will allow us to explore our projects and get them built. So there are a couple of outcomes that we are hoping that you will get by the end of the semester. First of all, develop an understanding and practice of good electronic workflow. And you might think, what's the deal with workflow? Why do we care about workflow? Well, no one piece of software can get you from the initial sketches and kind of vague, unclear ideation part of a project all the way through to construction details and contract documents. It just isn't, we just don't have anything that can do that. So understanding what each piece of software can get you and how far it can get you, and of course understanding your own skill set in each type of program. Some people are just masters of Photoshop, whereas for other people, Photoshop really doesn't seem to make sense. Whereas SketchUp or Revit as 3D modelers may be right what you're looking for. So understanding your own personal workflow is really important. Also, in this case, in this class, we are going to learn a new type of software. It's called BIM, Building Information Modeling, and that is in Revit, although there are plenty of other examples out there, and many pieces of software, including even good old SketchUp, which is really a very kind of lightweight design tool, has elements of building information modeling. Finally, we're going to be doing some orthographic drawings and also perspective drawings, including rendered views and non-rendered views. Other things that we'll be covering, just sort of in the general ebb and flow of the semester, are things like making professional electronic presentations and physical presentations. And we will also be using the laser cutter, the 3D printer, augmented reality, and virtual reality. We are going to get you ready for the 21st century. So how is the class going to be run? Well, those of you who have had me as an instructor before, you know that I like those videos, and I'm sorry about that. I just can't resist, and the reason is several, and it may seem silly to be sitting in a college class watching a video in class, but the advantage of those videos is so great, which is that it allows me to help you and have really almost an entire class devoted to just running around and helping people solve problems. And especially this year, where we're going to be learning Autodesk Revit, which is a big, complex building information modeling program. these are complex projects, and it's hard. Some of you may take this to like a fish to water, but for others of you, it may be a struggle, and that's okay. These are difficult programs. So we will be watching videos in class, and you can watch them using headphones. No letting the speaker go, please. And in fact, this class will be special because I've gotten approval to get you all loaner iPads. So you'll have iPads that you can watch the videos on while you are doing the actual drawing on your computer. Now, these videos are kind of mind-numbingly dull, and some of you blow through the videos so quickly that I am going to be augmenting the video instruction, which is kind of like boot camp. I will be augmenting those with in-class exercises or overnight charrettes, and these will help me to elucidate different, say, technological strategies or just techniques that I want you to know, or that if I'm noticing in your assignments, like, hey, nobody seems to be able to get the lighting correct. Let's do an in-class lighting exercise. And my experience has been that for most people, the 1 hour and 50-minute classroom period is usually adequate to complete the day's assignment. Please note that each day, basically, where there is a video, there will also be an assignment due that evening. So you will be expected to finish it either in class or at home. So plan accordingly. You all know how busy your schedules are, and of course, I'm recording this for the nighttime class, so you only have a couple of hours to get it done. You're also a smaller class, so I'm hoping that I will have greater facility to kind of make my way around the room and help everybody as needed. And finally, in addition to all these other items, you are expected to keep up with the homework and the assignments. There are several graded assignments. Homework, and again, if you've taken my class, you know that I will accept homework up until when it's due. If it's late, no credit. The system will actually automatically assign no credit. So just keep that in mind. And homework is not worth a tremendous amount in the semester, but it's an easy 100%. You get full credit. You submit anything and you get full credit. Now, ideally, you would actually submit the assignment due today, but please keep that in mind. This is meant to keep you moving in the semester. Technology is very difficult, and it is very much the subject where you build on previous knowledge. So if you fall behind, you really fall behind. It can snowball. So please, please, please keep up with the homework. There are several required materials, including a laptop with the scroll wheel mouse, and there will be desktops available, so you can use those if you need. I know some of you may not have a SketchUp license or whatever available. Obviously, there will be videos on YouTube, and there will be some printing expenses somewhere in the neighborhood of $40. Might be a little bit more, might be a little bit less. However, lucky you, there is no required textbook for this class. However, some of you may be the types of people who need a book to go along with. Some of you are you're not auditory or visual learners. You may be more of the type of learner who needs a book to follow. Feel free to get the Douglas Seidler book, Revit Architecture 2020 for interior designers. He may have updated it actually for the latest version. And yes, I know it's a shock, but you are going to get graded this semester. It's horrible to think that some people, I don't know who, actually care about grades. I know you don't. But there will be several assignments, including these in-class charrettes, but also longer assignments, which will kind of take us through the course of the semester. This will include, we're going to draw the existing conditions for a building down on Newbury Street in Boston. And then, and that will be one major assignment. And then we are going to draw a new project inside that building. And that will be another project, a schematic design project. And then finally, we will have a kind of redo project where we take a precedent study, a different building, or interior that you will recreate using the computer and various technological means, and then you will explore that precedent using different tools that are available, including virtual and augmented reality. Finally, is important to understand that this is a regular course here at Endicott College. You do need to abide by all the elements of the student requirements, including the promise to be adhere by academic integrity. This is all online on campus. Also, if you have any needs in class, extended time, or a tutor, or a reader, or a note taker, by all means, that is perfectly fine. But if I need to do anything, you need to let me know, because otherwise I will not know, and I will not know what to do. And of course, our assignments, as you well know, are presented on a date. So if you are struggling to make those presentation deadlines, by all means, please let me know, and especially if you have any accommodations that you need to get to those deadlines, please, again, let me know. I will not know, and I won't be able to offer it out unless you let me know. And this isn't, we want this class to be as inclusive as possible. I understand that everybody is coming from a different place in their lives, and we want everyone to feel comfortable and safe in class. So again, if you have an issue with what's going on in class, either with me or with any of your fellow students, feel free to just let me know, and you can let me know in person, or you can shoot me an email, or you can drop an anonymous letter under my door, whatever you feel most comfortable doing. It's also worth noting that most 3-credit classes, you are expected for each credit hour to spend a minimum of 2 hours of work outside of class each week. And so that means 6 hours of homework each week. I think you will find the class moves along fairly quickly, not terrible from what I have read in my course evaluations, but not slow either. So once again, that just means please, please, please keep up with the assignments. And finally, attendance. Yes, you have to come to class. I know this is a new thing for you guys, for you're all sophomores, or at least many of you are sophomores, and you may not have had a regular attendance schedule in class, or you may have attended online, which is perfectly fine. But now we are attending class in person, unless, like today, I have to be somewhere else. And then I can attend remotely. If you are either quarantined because you are suspected of exposure to COVID, or you are isolated because you have COVID, you are then allowed to attend remotely. I will set up Zoom, and I will try to remember you're there, although this semester we will not be having sort of total Zoom immersion. So please speak up so that I remember that you're there. And unless I have heard that you are either quarantined or isolated, I will assume that you need to be in class, and you will be marked absent, and you're only allowed 3 absences before your final grade for the semester drops by a step for each additional absence past 3, or if you sort of constantly come in late, besides me being irritated, your grade will eventually start to drop. So lastly, in the syllabus, here's a kind of topical outline, and basically we're going to begin with sort of Revit boot camp, which is drawing existing conditions. We will then move on to doing an art gallery design. There'll be a quiz worth, I forget how many. My quizzes, because of the way I set them up, they always have some random point value, so it's always like 195 points or some strange thing like that. But these major assignments are weighted more or less equally. However, there will be a number of these smaller assignments kind of interspersed here, little charrettes and whatnot, which will be worth much less in your final grade. So finally, the last project will be a precedent study, not a precedent stud, but a precedent study, where we will recreate either an interior or an architectural exterior of a building, and then model that on the computer and look at it in a number of ways: 3D printed, virtual reality, and augmented reality, in addition to looking at it on your screen. And just taking a quick look at Canvas. I'm sure you've all seen Canvas before, la-di-da-di. Anyway, here's our Canvas page. It is set up by weekly modules. So you can see here, like for our first week of classes, there's just one class. And there's this lecture that I put the PowerPoint up here in case anybody wants it for reference. Also, the video I'd like you to watch for homework for next week, the Welcome to Revit, which goes over the interface, the installation and interface. And here's some examples of the first assignment that we'll be doing in case you're wondering. Anyway, and then each week there's usually assignments. Sometimes there's additional information. Although usually what I do, if you click on one of the assignments, there might be some files associated with here. Like here's this window file that's mentioned in the lecture. And also here's the link to the video lecture. You click on that and it should open right up. All right, so that was the syllabus. Other things that you need to know this semester is, wow, we get free iPads. How cool is that? This is a loaner for the semester from Academic Technology. They come with a stylus, an Apple Pencil, which is awesome. And what we will do, we will load on some software for a number of different applications, including just good old taking notes, but also sketching, photography, scanning, and augmented reality. Some of this software we can probably get as a trial period, and if you like it, you can pay for it. And other of the software is just free, and free we like. However, it will be unfortunately tied to the iPad that you're using. So at the end of the semester, you're going to have to give it back. But it will be tied to your Apple ID account, which you will either use your own or create a new one if you don't have one. And so if you ever do get an iPad, you can just log back in and get your software back. Like I mentioned, those software, those videos that I love to use, sorry. But anyway, they will be headphone only. So if you don't have your headphones, you're not watching the video. Although I guess you can get subtitles on YouTube. Please stick around in class. It's always disruptive when people are kind of getting up and getting down, but you are welcome to do other work once you're done with your assignment, or if you want me to check it over, I can come and take a look. If you do read instructions better, you can try the textbook, and I also have written out a kind of vague outline of the class notes if you find that helpful, the kind of lecture notes that I used when I created those lectures. All right, so a couple of things before we jump into talking about Revit, which are kind of technological things. You may or may not have covered these last year in one of your media classes, Media 1 or 2. But we all need to work in an electronic world, so it behooves you to have your laptop configured as best as possible. First of all, you're spending a lot of time on the computer. You need to absolutely make it as comfortable as possible in every room where you sit. So if you are tall, you need to set the screen height so it's a little higher. My advice is to grab a couple books or your backpack and put your laptop up there. Ideally, the middle of the screen would be right perpendicular to your eyeball height. A little lower is fine, but the lower it gets, the more your head dips kind of as you're working on the computer, and the more your head dips, your arms and shoulders will get tired. your shoulders should be parallel with the screen, which is to say not off at some funny angle. You should be directly parallel to your screen. Ideally, you would not be facing out a window which is bright behind your screen. That can be tiring for your eyes. I know that most of the classrooms, the desktops are set facing the windows. Darn it. And that would be nice if they didn't do that. But they do, because we're limited on space. And of course, a padded backpack. When you carry around your laptop, use both shoulders. Our laptops and that power brick weigh a ton. So by all means, do yourself a favor and don't develop, asymmetrical scoliosis by sophomore year. That wouldn't be good. So anyway, if you have a problem, if some error pops up on your screen, copy the message down or cut and paste it, or do function or control print screen to screen grab it. And call IT in College Hall is probably the best place to do. They have a kind of help ticket that you can set up. I believe they call it Fresh Service. And they usually are very good about getting back to you. You can also physically go into College Hall. IT is in the basement. AT can also help with issues with software. They don't have a lot of manpower, so it's also sometimes hard to get in there and get them to help you with your computer. But either way, if something goes horribly wrong, IT is the place to go, because they are the ones with the loaners. Unfortunately, right now, we don't have a lot of loaners available because of kind of a chip shortage. But anyway, so here's hoping your computers don't break down. And of course, you can always work on the desktops. The desktops are always available, and they are way faster than your laptop. So if you do work on the desktops, or even not, my advice, and I will keep reminding you to back up your work, my advice is back up your work. And the way you do this is you sign into your accounts. I use Dropbox because I have both PC and Mac equipment, and Dropbox seems to be the most flexible for syncing documents and that sort of thing. I also use Google Chrome as a browser, both on my iPad, iPhone, but also my PC, and that also seems to sync very well. You can log into that. I would also recommend enabling two-factor authentication for everything. You do not want somebody logging into your email ever. Your email is kind of like your gateway to your life right now. Maybe when they have chips embedded in our foreheads, in the future, you won't need your email to authenticate credit card purchases and pretty much everything else you do. But for now, use two-factor authentication, so it's hard for someone to steal your email and log in. I personally have a MacBook that I use for sort of more personal stuff. What's beautiful about that is it syncs messages and FaceTime and all that kind of stuff, and images from my phone. My images will also sync with the computer, but again, if you're used to Apple devices which sync so perfectly, they will not. Your phone will not easily sync its photos with your PC, unless you use something like Dropbox. I should get a kickback from those guys. So anyway, there are all sorts of wonderful things that you can do to set up Windows. You can use tile version and that sort of thing. You can log into your Windows account. My advice is to set up the machine so that it is as comfortable as possible and as efficient as possible for you to use. You should know how to call up software quickly and easily. Finally, again, just to once you're logged in and you've got everything all set up and configured, you do need to have a backup set up. And I, again, use Dropbox, which configures a folder on your computer. Google Drive, iCloud, OneDrive, they all do something very similar. Please do not say, if I walk by and I see like 100 documents saved onto your desktop, I'm literally going to like take a smoothie and spill it on your computer, so that you're punished for poor file management. Save everything in a year, by semester, by class, by assignment. have a filing hierarchy. And partly this allows you to find stuff in the future. It takes an extra 20 seconds to figure out where you're going to save stuff, but it is well worth it because if your computer breaks and you are now sophomores, you're going to be really challenging your computer. A significant number of you will probably have your computers kind of explode by the end of the semester. Not all of you, but the sophomore year is when you start to see problems crop up here and there, even if it's just, a processor dies or a hard drive freaks out. Computers don't last forever. I know it's hard to imagine, but they don't. Anyway, and there are other wonderful things that you can do and to help you to make your life more efficient. Like I always fiddle around with folder options so that it shows me icons so that I can quickly see projects. Again, I kind of geek out over all these little tweaks that you can do to your interface. This also includes adding software to your taskbar. I always add software to my taskbar and I make my taskbar disappear. But then I also tweak the power options on my computer. And this is guaranteed. Some of you are like, my computer gets so slow. And the reason it's so slow is because of the power options when you're on battery. If your battery most of you, when you unplug your computer, it goes into a special battery mode. So go to your power options, and my advice would be set it to high performance at all time. Your battery life will be crap, but you're going to be carrying your power brick with you anyway because our classes are so darn long that there's no way, even with the sort of power saver mode, your computer won't last that long. Our screens are like a flat panel TV, so by all means, just make your life happier. If you do change this to high performance, you should restart your computer, and then you'll notice immediately that your software is running a little more zippily on battery. Other things that you can do, again, if you really want to get into the weeds and tweak your computer, you can right-click on this PC, get the properties of that, and what you will see in there are some advanced settings that you can go to, and you can adjust the computer and make it optimized for performance. We're all about making these computers run like Maseratis. So anyway, if you don't do that, you will be fine. I'm sure. Those of you with touchscreens, if your computer hasn't freaked out already, it may freak out when it starts running Revit. So turning off your touchscreen is actually probably not a bad idea. It will also make your PC run a little bit faster. Other things you can do, you can close all the apps that you're not using that you opened like last year and never turned off. And this is the same as what you'd see on your phone. You also might want to close those extra browser windows, shut down Bluetooth and NFC if your computer has it. Windows Update. Windows likes to update itself all the time, like sometimes every other week. Although I will say I have both Windows and Mac computers, and the Mac does seem to update more frequently. I don't know why that is, but anyway, the other thing is if your hard drive is full. Again, same as your phone. When you get above 80% full, your device will start slowing down. My advice is either just delete the documents, but I hate deleting documents. Better is to use something like Dropbox, which will allow you to kind of offload them from your device without actually deleting them. They'll all be on the online Dropbox version. And those of you who have an iPhone, you may have that option turned on where it kind of offloads apps that you don't use frequently to save space. And iCloud will do the same with like photos on your phone. Another thing you can do if your computer is running slowly, this happens to me because my computer is about 3 years old, almost 4 years old, so it really does start to run slowly, is shutting it down at the end of the day. It gets tired. I mean, we all get tired, but the computer actually gets like really tired, like the buffers and stuff fill up. So by all means, do that. Other stuff you can do, the internet, you probably, never cleared your cookies ever in your life. And you should do that occasionally, since Google and Apple and every other darn website you visit are tracking you endlessly. You can use the Chrome browser. That also is a little bit snappier than the Edge browser from Windows. And if you're concerned about privacy, there are other browsers out there, including Opera, which is noted for its security. And even just using search engines like Dogpile, for example, as a great search engine and does not track you as much as Google if you're concerned about privacy or privacy, if we like. Anyway, and if you do find that there's software that, like, oh, I put that on my computer like 3 years ago and I don't use it anymore. Those of you who are using your own computers, computers you brought from home, just uninstall the apps. You can use Cortana to search for uninstall system apps, or you can click on the system button and uninstall them that way. However, don't uninstall things like Adobe and Autodesk software. They have their own little funkadelic software managers that sit in the kind of tray that's filled with these obscure little icons. So the one that looks a bit like a figure 8, that's the Adobe one, and that's where you can see which Adobe software you have installed, install other pieces of Adobe software, and then update it as needed. As you can see here, mine, I have a couple of updates that I need to do, which I haven't gotten around to because I don't know why. Other things, again, this may be review for some of you, but maybe not. Sleeping versus shutting down. We all need more sleep, don't we? Except Microsoft Windows, which prefers to shut down. So my advice is, like, when you're done with class, and let's say you have another class, just shut the lid and you're fine. And we will put your computer to sleep. Just kind of like, again, those of you who use Macs, you just shut the lid and it puts it to sleep. Macs, for better or worse, are much better at handling going to sleep. Windows will eventually get groggy. So after a week of just shutting the lid, you may find the performance of your computer is starting to suffer. So by all means, just shut the computer down entirely. Click on the start button and choose shut down. And let it set for 30 minutes. The computer, everything heats up, static electricity develops, buffers get full. It's definitely worth occasionally shutting down. And students always ask, should I cover my camera? Yeah, and you know what? Mark Zuckerberg, head of Facebook, covers his camera. You should probably cover your camera too. They sell these little slide over things that you can use to cover your camera. So, all right, let's talk a little bit about software before we jump into Revit. First of all, screenshots. We all use screenshots all the time. Now, in our software, it's nice not to use screenshots, but actually export images because it's much higher quality. But it is possible to take very quick screenshots using either Control Print Screen or Alt Print Screen. There's a PRTSCR button, PRTSCR button, on your keyboard, and that copies it to the clipboard, and then you can paste it into an email or something like that. And that's great for error messages and that sort of thing. You can also have it automatically save onto your desktop or folder. There's a snippet tool which does something similar, and you can even record your whole screen, including audio, just using PowerPoint. That's the easiest way. Sometimes, I don't know, sometimes teachers ask you to do that for presentations or something. PowerPoint is actually awesome for that kind of stuff. Other things, your taskbar, which is that bar at the bottom of your screen, you can just right click on it and get some options on the taskbar, and you can hide it automatically. I find that the screen that we use is humongous, but if you're actually trying to do drawings, it feels very small. In fact, you may notice if you see my face on this video, I often look off to the left. I'm looking at an extra screen that I have that's much bigger. Partly my eyesight is crap, so I need a bigger screen so I can just see anything. But anyway, you can also pin applications on there, so you can easily see, say Revit, launch it by just one click. And you can right click on the icons on your taskbar and easily access recent documents. So again, quick way, especially if you're like, I don't remember where I saved that, even though you have an excellent filing system. That's a quick way to jump into a document you just were writing. Finally, email, and again, you're all probably experts at this by now. You're sophomores, you're hardened veterans of Endicott's education, but you can forward all of your emails to one email account if you want, or again, if you're like me and you check your email on your phone, which is not ideal because it's so small, but you can just add several accounts to your email accessing system, either the iPhone system or on the computer. So if you do use the desktop computers, by all means, log in to your Dropbox or Google file saving system on the desktop, and that will allow you to access your files on the desktops. You can also just download individual files, but please remember to upload stuff back into your account. Again, the reason I like to use Dropbox is it's just so easy to drag something back in and update your files. Okay, so shall we actually talk about what we're going to spend most of this semester learning? Revit? Yes, we should. So let's see, where does Revit sit when it compares with all of the other software? And at this stage, you guys have actually learned quite a lot of software. Now, AutoCAD is best for drafting plans and elevations, for orthographic drawings. And the reason is because you're mostly just drawing lines, and it's super quick, super easy. It's most like hand drawing or hand drafting, I suppose. SketchUp is best for quick perspective studies, either one room or the massing of a building, or creating a custom piece of furniture, or just exploring ideas, because it is so quick and easy and you don't need to know anything about anything. Also, it has a massive library, the 3D warehouse. So again, if you're exploring furniture or you want to populate a site with trees and playground equipment, you are going to be able to do that in SketchUp so much faster than in any other program. And Enscape is that rendering program that plugs into SketchUp. It also plugs into good old Revit. And that is what will make your drawings look photorealistic. Photoshop is a 2D drawing, composition, and rendering tool. And what that does, sometimes it's simpler. For example, if your lighting isn't working or your poche isn't showing up properly, you can fix that in Photoshop in a minute, whereas fixing the lighting might take like a week in Revit or in SketchUp. So Photoshop often kind of saves your rear end in a lot of situations, or just a rendering isn't coming out, it's not exposed the way you like or whatever. You can use Photoshop to add blur or other effects. It's really a great last sort of compositional element. InDesign, another Adobe product, we use that for board layout. It's really ideal for multiple sheets when you're creating like a book or a handout. For a single board, Illustrator is actually fine, but and it's also great for custom patterns and diagrams. Finally, Revit. Revit. How I love you. It's so wonderful, but it's also horrible. It's great for large-scale projects. You need to know a lot about your project in advance to draw in Revit. It's not just a drawing program. It's a database. And so you need to know what kind of construction your walls are. They're not just surfaces like in SketchUp. You can do early kind of conceptual design. You can do rendering in Revit. And the rendering is very high quality, but it is much more complex. So it's best to save it for larger, more complex projects. And it's what's known as a building information modeler. The drawing process in some ways is actually similar to SketchUp. You just kind of have a drawing interface and you add objects to it and they interact with each other. You can modify objects. You can modify objects as you create them, and you can also edit them once they're in. It even has grips, so you can modify objects with grips, and you can right-click on objects to get those context-sensitive menus. However, there is so much more information in these models that really that's what makes them so valuable for construction drawings. It's these parameters. You can have things like the model information of the and product manufacturer of the stove that you're using in the kitchen or the flooring. You can have images attached to the materials. I mean, it's really quite sophisticated. So anyway, in terms of the way these models are structured, it's a single 3D model. So it's much like SketchUp. You create a wall, and that wall can be viewed in plan or in elevation or in perspective or in a schedule, a wall schedule. So you can also cut a section through the wall and see inside it, and often there's stuff inside there. Walls are made up of layers of studs and vapor barriers and drywall and plywood and shingles. So it's quite complex. Anyway, the way that the model is organized is into what are called families. And families are organized by what they are. So there's a furniture family, there are many furniture families, there are many wall families, there are many window families. In each family, so you might have a family of double hung windows, there might be several family members. And one might be a 2-foot wide double hung window, might be a 2'3" double hung window, might be a 2'6" double hung window, etc., etc. But the family types are really what are kind of the basis of the organization of the system. And they can be controlled sort of like layers. So I can turn off all the windows, I could turn off all the walls just by a click. The only trick is that Revit does this automatically. Finally, there are all sorts of parameters. These are basically pieces of information about one of these family members. These can be geometric. So maybe it's a chair that is 18 inches high and 2 feet deep and all that kind of stuff. It may have to do with its appearance. So for example, the parameter might have a material associated with it that helps you render it. It also might have construction information, what it's made out of, and finally it may have product information. And you can even create custom fields for, let's say you do systems furniture, there might be fields for like which system this is part of. And these can all be extracted into schedules and other types of views. Views are organized by the type of view. And we'll look at that when we go take a look at Revit. But basically, sections are grouped together, plans are grouped together. Some of them you don't see until you create them. So for example, if you create an interior elevation, it puts it in an interior elevation grouping. But that grouping doesn't exist until you create interior elevations. So it's a little funny that way. But views also have parameters, and these can include the scale. Is it 1/8" scale or 1/4" scale or whatnot? And which objects are visible. So for example, you can have a floor plan where all you see are the floor finishes, you know, the flooring patterns. And then you might have another floor plan where you don't see the floor patterns, but you do see the furniture. So each of those has its own unique view parameters, its view properties. Okay, and you can also control other things, including view depth. So for example, you can have a perspective where you don't see stuff all the way on the other side of the building, or you do. So the Revit interface, the grand tour, is what I'm going to have you take a look at for homework. And also, I just want to go over how to export PDF files. That's in that video, because when you do your homework, I'm going to expect you to post a PDF to Canvas. So your homework is, first of all, install Revit 2022. And then watch the welcome to Revit video, which kind of goes over the interface. Let's take a look now at the Revit 2022 installation process. So to install Revit, guess what? You have to go to the Autodesk student community website. The link is on Canvas and also in this lecture. And of course you have to sign in, and that's always the hardest part for me because I have to remember my login. Now I use, like I mentioned, Google Chrome, so it allows me to, it remembers my passwords and shares them with everybody that works at Google apparently. Anyway, and then when you go, this will allow you to install really any Autodesk software. And no, I don't think I'm going to do that. Survey, sorry. Anyway, and with Revit, let's get started and see what we've got. Obviously, it knows who you are, and you can confirm that. Oh, look at that. I'm going to get some Autodesk software. Woohoo! I don't know how it confirmed that. It doesn't really say, but I'm sure it's looking at the cookies on my computer. Anyway, if we go here, here's Revit, here's AutoCAD. There's also other stuff. Sketchpad, Sketchbook is down here somewhere. Where is it? I don't know where it is. I guess I need a different link. But Revit is the one that we want. Let's get the product. And obviously Windows is the only option. There's no other version of Revit. And this year we're going to be going with Revit 2022. That's the most recent version. And it's the version that's in our labs. So, and just download that version and let it run. It's a big download. So you might want to give yourself at least an hour of kind of high-speed downloading to get that to go. But get that installed on your computer and watch the intro video. That video is actually probably good to watch while you are letting it install because it probably takes about the same amount of time. And I will see you next class with your computer, with your mouse, and with the excitement of learning some new software.